TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast. The Waco History Podcast is sponsored by Brotherwell Brewery on historic Bridge Street in Waco.
Welcome to the Waco History Podcast. We're going to air for you over the next few months a special series of Waco History Living Stories. These were segments that originally aired on KWBU here in Waco. They were produced by the Institute for Oral History editor, Michelle Holland, and narrated by two fabulous narrators, Louis Maze and Kim Patterson. And so these highlight oral histories from the collection of the Institute for Oral History at Baylor University, which I direct, which has been around since 1970 and has over 1,000 interviews related to Waco and McLennan County history, and we're happy to highlight those here. Cross the Brazos at Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn. In this Living Stories vignette, we find out about the experiences folks had on passenger trains, something we don't have as much of a encounter with anymore, but new faces and experiences one might encounter on a passenger train.
Then the night came alive with gunfire. He knew that at last it'd been found.
Traveling by train has become something of a novelty for most Americans, as the routes available from surviving lines are quite limiting. But during their heyday, passenger trains with service offered in most cities were the go-to mode of transportation for many Americans and offered the excitement of new faces and experiences. Mary Sendón of Waco describes a notable train ride she took with her husband, Dr. Andrés Sendón.
We were sitting there, and there was a family with two other children, but one of them was a little girl, cute little girl. Well, my husband liked kids, and he started talking to her. Well, she wouldn't leave him alone. She just wanted to sit with him and talk and talk and talk. So finally, two little boys came up and said, wanted to get in on the conversation. They had a book with the ABCs. Sendón said, "Did you say the ABCs?" They did, they started off saying, and then they told him, said, "Now you say them." Well, Sendón, to tease him, he would say A, B, D, F, he'd skip around. And the little boy looked at him and said, "I thought you were a college professor." Well, this little girl fell in love with my husband. Her name is Kathy. She was going to Wisconsin, and they lived in Weatherford, Texas. We got off at Detroit, and went on to Wisconsin. And when we came back, we didn't see them anywhere around. I said, "I wonder if that family's on this train again." Sure enough, I looked up, and there stood the father with this little girl. He said, "I walked through every train on this thing here, trying to find y'all. She wanted to know if y'all were here." So we got her name and address, and that started a correspondence. She would write cute little things, mother would write some for her. A friendship started there between them, us, and the little girl. And she asked my husband what his name was, and they were still with the ABC. I said, "Oh, call me XYZ." Well, she'd write him letters. I still have them, "Dear XYZ." Well, to this day, those people write to me. That was the strangest friendship that we ever made. The little girl would come to see us once a year. She always had to make her mother make cookies to bring him cookies. And now she's married, a nurse, has children, but they're still our friends. Isn't that strange how a train will do that for you? That was our train friendship.
Marcille Sullins of Woodway recalls train travel during World War II with a trip she made to see her husband, who was stationed in Colorado.
I had never been away from home. I had never been out of the state of Texas. So I caught a train at Katy Depot with a 6-week-old baby. And during the war, they put everything that they could find on the lines. I traveled in a chair car with windows that would not close. At that time, they still had coal-driven engines, steam engines. and the cold smoke came back into the car. And when we got to Colorado Springs, he had been waiting on us 8 hours. We were dirty from smoke, tired.
Interest has renewed lately in passenger rail service, due in part to rising fuel costs and growing concerns about the environment. Perhaps one day in the future, trains will flourish once more across the American landscape.
And Waco, ride hard and I'll make it by dawn.
Thanks for listening to the Waco History Podcast. Like what you heard? Subscribe, rate, and review our show on iTunes so we can reach more listeners. You can find show notes and info on every episode at wacohistorypodcast.com, and more info on Waco's past at wacohistory.org. Our theme music, used with permission, is Cross the Brazos at Waco, performed by the late Billy Walker. For more info on Billy's music, go to billywalker.com. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
When I reach San Antone.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.